Thank you very much. And thank you to the enterprising Washington University students who got me here in their car and even picked up pizza for me. Thanks, guys, so that I can make it here on time. I had a wonderful time hanging out with a bunch of some very, very ambitious students who responded very, very well to my challenge for all of them to go out and do awesomeness on this internet. And while they're doing it, to remember that they have a responsibility to keep that internet as open and awesome as possible for all the other generations to come. So it was a very energizing, very great talk. I shoved a little pizza in my mouth in between. And now Eric Martin, general manager of Reddit. You can clap it up. We'll take you on a little nostalgic journey through slides to show you through the wonder of static photos our journey thus far on the Internet 2012 campaign bus tour. Eric Martin.
So I don't know if any of you guys ever had parents that would make you watch slideshows or relatives of their vacation, but or maybe you saw that episode of Mad Men where they did that. But that's what we're going to try to do here. So let's see. Okay.
This is, you'll know if we had been using one of those old school carousel slide things, that would not have just happened. So perhaps they had a point. One thing I should point out is this bus tour started like a lot of great ideas, just out of a casual conversation. I pitched it to Eric as this idea, like, wouldn't it be cool, just for the sake of getting a bus, like to just have a bus, wrap it with some kind of cool stuff on it. Maybe make it half red and half blue to show just how bipartisan support is for internet freedom. And then take it to a bunch of cool places and like campaign on behalf of the internet for internet freedom. It was something that we saw come out in droves in the fight against soap and PIPA. You know, the mainstream media wanted to talk about it being Hollywood versus Silicon Valley. That was a meme we saw over and over and over again. And as I think we all know, all the innovation on the internet does not come out of Silicon Valley. In fact, the tens of millions of Americans who stood up and said no to those two terrible bills, soap and PIPA, were from all over this country. And they all appreciated the value of this open internet. And we need to make sure we got our politicians up to speed. And it was a big day, January 18th, just to refresh y'all's memories. PIPA, the Protect IP Act, was still kind of floating around as a thing in the Senate. SOPA had been pretty much shuttered in the House. But on that day, sites went dark, I'm proud to say, including Reddit. But people all over this country, some of whom for the very first time, contacted their elected officials and called them and said, vote no, you've got to switch. Vote no, this is wrong. And those stories started snowballing because people shared them using social media. They started sharing them using the internet, and something unprecedented happened in Washington. $94 million in Hollywood lobbying, which was spent last year to basically get those bills written, was defeated by a bunch of Americans, a bunch of American voters who didn't have a lobbying group, who simply said no. And as we've heard from every single politician we've talked to since, that was unprecedented. Now that's probably a bit of a commentary on the state of government right now, and I think Congress's approval ratings might indicate that. But what was so empowering was we saw that day 13 senators switch sides over the course of 24 hours, 5 of whom were co-sponsors of the Protect IP Act. All right, that is some serious legislative whiplash. All right, and that happened because a bunch of random people all over the internet leveraged this one tremendous resource we have. And so somehow that ended up being turned into this, because when you get a good idea, it doesn't do you any good to just bottle it up. It helps if you tell Eric Martin about it. And I'll let Eric take it from there.
Cool. So this is the first sort of graphical, artistic representation of our dream. This was probably thrown together in an hour because we figured we wanted to do. I mean, so this bus tour, you know, the costs were basically the renting the bus, the gas, which is really expensive right now, the bus driver, who's awesome, and the graphic wrap of the bus and some other logistic. And Reddit picked up the bill for, you know, the gas and the bus driver and the bus. But we thought it just was a better story and just you know, showed the power of the internet and proved our mission if we had you know, crowdfunded at least part of the trip. So we did an Indiegogo campaign to basically pay for the graphic wrap, which was like $15,000 and some extra. So this was the graphic we put together at the last minute because we needed to have something for that campaign. So that's what you see here. But we decided, we looked at the debate schedule, we looked at the map, and we decided to go from Denver, Colorado, to Danville, Kentucky. So this is our first visualization of that. This was a logo that Sean Sanders did for us, which is a dramatic improvement over our original logo.
Dude, I drew the original logo. You don't have to. I have all these people. You made the red alien, dude.
I know. And the hipmunk. Hipmunk.
My limit. I can't do buses.
Yeah.
It's got to be animal. Gotta know your limits.
Yeah. But I mean, Sean did a very good logo, and he also. Himself turned out, this is sort of by accident, but there's a lot of stories like this that led this tour. He himself, is now a successful sort of freelance graphic designer, and only was able to follow that profession because he, found work online through some of these, different online kind of crowd design project sites. So he, after he made this logo and he posted about it in his blog, and he told us like, hey, I wasn't really thinking about this when I started doing this logo. I was just doing it because Alexis is awesome and it seemed like a cool project, but he's like, I'm a perfect story of why it's important to have all these kind of free and open sort of platforms and marketplaces online. So that was a nice little thing there. Yeah.
And as an addendum, I actually got to meet Sean when I was last in Los Angeles, and I'm thrilled to say that although he is not doing design full time, he's decided instead to go to law school. He wants to be a lawyer, but he wants to be a lawyer that champions online rights. So we got a few years. We got to make sure he gets his law degree, so we can't spend too much time on Reddit. But it's so awesome because here's a guy again helping him help himself using the internet, and now he's going to law school, paying a good bit of money to go to give himself the skills to keep defending this awesome thing.
So one of the things we wanted to do on this tour was we wanted to have as many people as possible just get familiar and actually literally sign this beautiful declaration of internet freedom that's here. The declaration was put together by a few different individuals and groups. It's very open. It's sort of very broad, but I mean that's good because we have a very sort of broad tent here. And a lot of different people care about internet freedom. So at some point this evening, if you have a chance, give it a sign. This is one day going to be in the Library of Congress building where they have all of the important documents, I'm sure. So yeah, it might be the first multicolored magic marker document in that building, but that's fine.
If the Founding Fathers had access to such a wide array of markers, I'm sure they would have used it. John Hancock would have put a big one, pink, maybe red.
So our first event on this tour was actually a breakfast in Denver the day of the presidential debate. This was an event that Politico and the Internet Association, which came along with us on the tour, put together, and Alexis got a chance to be a channel for the internet and ask some questions to some campaign surrogates and sort of experts, along with the mayor of Denver. And there was a really interesting answer that the mayor of Denver gave, just talking about sort of the innovation multiplier that he felt was happening in Denver. So not only do you have, and we've seen this in a lot of the cities we visited, not only do you have people coming in from out of town to work at sort of dynamic startups in the different cities, or not only do you have people who go to school at an area university who are sticking around and starting up companies, not only do you have the jobs that those are creating, but you also have sort of the extended impact of, because those companies are being innovative and doing interesting things and looking to do interesting things outside of work and looking to build a community of their peers, that has an effect on all kinds of other businesses. It has an effect on civic programs. So this innovation multiplier is something that the mayor, I thought, spoke very well about, and we've seen it happen. And I think, visiting some local businesses here today, we definitely saw, the impact that can have.
Thank you.
Okay. This was our presidential debate drinking game. It was pretty fun. I don't remember much of it, but it was cool. And I mean, we just had a bunch of people at a bar and watched the debate. But we purposely started and ended this tour at the presidential debate, and 2 days from now we'll end it at the vice presidential debate, and that was, it was on purpose, and part of it was kind of tied into the big media story and sort of, I don't know, just made sense. But the other reason was we felt like these debates, that they're discussing a lot of important issues, and it's the elections, of course, are very important, but we felt that there's no debate in the abstract sense that compares with what we felt was sort of like the biggest debate or the biggest open question of our generation and of our time, which is what the heck are we going to do with the internet? We have this amazing, amazing platform. It's hugely powerful. It has amazing potential to change just about anything. But can we actually make that happen? Can we actually get it to fulfill its potential? Can we use the internet to impact access to education, access to capital, poverty, social justice? Name your issue. There's at least a chance the internet can have an impact there. But are we gonna support it? Are we gonna help it do that, or are we going to sort of hamper it and put some shackles on it because it's hurting sort of incumbent businesses, or it's pissing some people off? I mean, that's what we feel is the real debate of this time. So, comparing that, contrasting that with the sort of presidential debate and all the sort of horse race media coverage was something we felt pretty strongly about. But we also drank every time Bane was mentioned, so that was.
Well, and to be clear, you took 2 sips if Bane Capital were mentioned, but if Bane the villain from Batman were mentioned, you'd have to chug your drink. It was a good night.
These are some debate watchers at our party.
She's giving a kind of look of disapproval over there. Yeah. We can Photoshop that later, make it look like she's having a great time.
Okay, so this was at the, see if I can get this right, Metropolitan State College Denver campus. I think that's right, in Denver. And we spoke. It's a commuter college. We spoke there for a little bit to some students. I think most of them were coming in for free pizza, but hopefully some of them stuck around and talked to. And it was really interesting too, because you had, there was a guy in the audience who was hardcore Tea Party. He was talking about he couldn't decide whether to donate to Crossroads America, Karl Rove's group, or some other group, which is not at least on Reddit and a lot of these other sites where sort of some of these internet issues come up. That's not your typical demographic, but he was right there with us on all of these issues, and we think that's something we saw at Open People. We saw the Heritage Foundation, aligned right with the EFF and some other groups that normally don't agree on things, but everyone thinks they have the best idea. And the internet is a great place to have the best idea rise to the top. So everyone's for an open internet because everyone thinks they're correct. So it works out nicely, but that's definitely something we you'll see some slides later on. We went into truck stops, we went and talked to NASCAR fans at football games, we talked to people working at college radio stations who are as liberal as you can get, and on this issue of an open internet and sort of internet freedom, and the internet is an open platform where anything is possible, everyone agrees. Also, you'll notice whatever artist painted this painting got the colors incorrect, or the curator hung it upside down, because down votes are this purple color and up votes are orange. But this was the student union at the Metropolitan State University Denver campus.
And I want to stress something here, mostly because a lot of these are my photos. We have a documentary crew here. They are professionals. They're very good at what they do. I have nothing to do with the filming of anything that is going to be going on here, and I can assure you the quality of what you're going to see in the documentary will far surpass these photographs I've taken. This, on the other hand, was taken by a random person. This was the very first tweeted photo of the Internet 2012 bus. If you notice on the back, I'll read it for you. It says, "Tweet this bus" with hashtag Internet 2012. Now, it goes without saying, this is very dangerous. And No matter how much you love internet freedom, please wait until you've pulled over to the side of the road to tweet. All right? That goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. I'll also say that I hope everyone takes lots of photos of the bus, because this was the first moment as Eric and I saw this come in through the intertubes when we realized, holy shit, like there's actually a bus covered in internet that's coming to us. And we could track its progress based on the tweets people were tweeting out along the way as it arrived in Denver.
Yeah, and this is a picture I will remember forever, because up until this point, we didn't really have proof that this was actually going to happen. I mean, of course, we found this bus company and the bus wrap person on the internet, and it looked up legit, but I don't know. We paid them, a lot of money to make this wrap thing happen. Also, the wrap. So it was getting close to the deadline to have this wrap template done, and I hadn't opened the file to see what this template looked like yet. And when I opened it, I was like, oh my god, this looks really complicated. There's no way our logo is going to easily convert to bus.
There is no Photoshop filter or plugin for that.
So I was kind of freaking out, and I was like, I'm gonna have to stay up all night and like try to figure this out, and it's probably gonna look really bad. And then I get a private message from someone on Reddit who says, hey, have you done your bus graphics yet? I might be able to help. So I wrote back, I was like, what, do you do that for a living? He said, yes. I am a large format graphic designer for my job. I work for, I won't say the company in case it gets him in trouble, but he does, buses and planes and billboards and blimps and anything giant that needs branding on it. That's what he does. And so 24 hours later, we had this awesome, amazing, professional looking. Actually, we had multiple ones to choose from. So that, again, that's the internet. And this guy, yet again, he works for a huge company that does outdoor advertising, and owns a bunch of radio stations, if you can figure it out. And he's starting a side business where he's just going to do sort of large format printing through the internet. He's going to find all his customers through the internet. He's building up a customer base. So again, he also, all along the way, the people whose music we used for the promotional video we did on Indiegogo wrote us a separate note and said, hey, I really support what you're doing. It's great exposure, but I also want to, have my music on there because this person ran a voiceover studio in Atlanta and gets all their voiceover work through people they've never met before, all through the internet and through like community, through Reddit, through message boards, through Twitter, through Facebook, through all these sort of community sites that, weren't necessarily designed for that purpose, but it's where people connect with each other and where people, say things like, hey, do you need help with the bus graphic? Because that's what I do. So up until we saw this, when I saw this photo, I was like, oh, thank God, this would be really embarrassing if the Internet 2012 bus tour got swindled by a site online purporting to rent buses. That would be really bad.
Incidentally, the Internet 2012 bus also did not have working internet when we got it. They forgot to put the Wi-Fi box on. Just for the irony. Quick side note, though, you'll note, so we have an artist, we have a musician, all on this same page, all for the same cause of internet freedom. And it is not. It is getting really, really hard to make the case that there are Americans out there who aren't either getting big checks from lobbyists or perhaps work in the industries writing them at the executive level who aren't for this. And as a side note, if any of you have a blimp that's looking for a wrap, email us. Or you want a soundtrack for that blimp, we can introduce you to, or a logo. Yeah, we've got introductions, so just email away. That's the front of the bus, yeah. There's not really much else to say about that, is there? Oh, right. Oh, we're going to zoom in on that. There's a QR code. I know what you're thinking. I love QR codes, Alexis. I can't get enough of them. I love scanning them all the time. They're the future of everything. Well, you're right. They are. They just haven't caught on yet in America, or really anywhere that's not Korea. But we put one, actually 4, all over the bus that will send you to a very special subreddit. I don't want to tell you because that's a spoiler. No, it's not Space Sticks. It is related to the bus and Carlton.
So this car is perfect example. I mean, it is the embodiment of the story we wanted to tell on this trip. This car is a rally fighter. It's from a company called Local Motors, and it has been escorting, flanking, following, chasing, scouting for the bus the whole trip. Occasionally making a run when Alexis forgets his wallet somewhere. But this car was manufactured in Arizona, but it was designed, sort of created on the internet. The original sort of drawing and concept of this car was done by a Korean college student who is going to school in California. Now he works for GM. This car took 18 months from design to actually being a car, and cost $3 million. Now, I don't know. I don't have anything to compare that to, but I learned that the Toyota Camry, for example, took about 10 years and about $1 billion. So this is fast prototyping. This is making a car that, sort of by its creation, by the process of making it, it's proven that users want it by the system that Local Motors has. So this is the future, of manufacturing. This is the future of manufacturing in America, and it looks badass.
Oh, and in case you're wondering, it goes really fast, and seriously makes every single person you drive by do a bit of a double take, a little whiplash. I didn't get this reference because, unlike Eric, I was not alive in 1977. So, if you've seen the movie Smokey and the Bandit, it's a classic. You should watch it. It's amazing. If you haven't seen it recently, you may forget the sort of loose premise, which is that Burt Reynolds and his friend with the truck have to get 40 cases of Coors from, I forget, Texarkana to where though?
Somewhere.
Yeah, to somewhere. They have to transport all this beer from Texarkana to somewhere in Georgia, and they have to go there and back in 24 hours because there's some sort of regulation, law, state tariff about moving that much Coors from one state to another, right? And it's absurd, and that's why everyone, this guy's a lawbreaker. But it's a ridiculous, absurd law that is somehow seems, completely un-American. Why can't you move a truck full of beer from one state to another? You bought it. It's beer. It's American beer. You should be able to move it to another state. And so when we were kind of conceptualizing this tour, I told Kat, who was helping us organize this, I want a Trans Am. I want a Burt Reynolds 1977 Trans Am to go in front of this bus, because I think anyone that has seen the movie Smokey and the Bandit will understand that, just like the whatever regulation preventing you to move beer from one state to another, no one, unless you're working for this beer company, no one really thinks that's a good idea or it's fair. It's just government kind of getting in the way. So I think most people feel the same way about some of these proposed internet laws once they learn about them. So to sort of visually show that, and I was half joking when I said this, I said, well, Kat, can you see if you can find a Trans Am that we can rent for 2 weeks? He came back and said, well, I can't find a Trans Am. But I have this car that was created online and manufactured in Arizona, and this is a picture of it. And that's when I knew we had something going on.
We are actually transporting a bunch of Coors in the back of the Internet 2012 bus. It's how we're going to fund the rest of this trip. Yeah. Ooh, modular robotics. Okay. I really loved Legos as a kid. I don't know about you guys, but Legos are freaking awesome. And they've come a long way. Mindstorm's pretty badass. Fairly steep learning curve. Where is something in the middle? If you were going to start Lego from the beginning and not start it in Denmark, no offense, Denmark, but let's say you're going to start it here in the States, and you're going to create something that would let a kid build robots that do really cool stuff. It doesn't require them to learn how to code, although they could. It's something they could just put together. It would look like this: a series of cubes. So, Mob Robotics, based out of Boulder, Colorado, is creating and manufacturing these awesome toys, and I hate to even call them toys because if you could see from all of us touring their facility, we are the oldest, you especially, children. Sorry. It's a running joke. Okay, the point is, these are actually simple working cubes that when connected start doing a variety of things, whether it's wheels spinning, light sensors, knobs turning, all these different mechanisms that you can simply just plug in just like you would a Lego kit, except they come to life instantly. And so this all got started, someone who had a good idea. And they were able to get a facility together. 3D printing technology helps them get prototypes together right there in the shop. They can solder, do everything they need, again, right there from Boulder, and they can start shipping to the world. And apparently they've got a ton of Austrians that recently have really gotten into these. And I like imagining a bunch of Austrians being like, yeah, we want the robot cubes. That's what they sound like. Send us more cubes. And I remember asking, you know, again, what was the big campaign? Like, were you guys doing a big push? Is your website auf Deutsch or something? And they were like, no, of course not. Like, people are just hearing about it on the internet. Like, then we now have a ton of demand we need to satisfy in Österreich because a bunch of Austrians think this is really cool. And again, manufacturing is done here. Like, looking at these kits, the first thing they said was, yeah, you know, we got a ton of customers who go out of their way to thank us because we run this business entirely from here. And they say their kids can tell, they can tell. They're tired of the janky toys that not only fall apart but don't really do much to teach their kids anything. And they're getting something that makes them feel like awesome parents because their kids are making really cool stuff and having a great time. They're actually very subversively teaching them to be the next generation of nerds, right? Very subversively giving them a little taste of what it's like to actually build stuff. And this was, when we were imagining all the different companies we would be meeting, this was definitely, I did not expect we'd be meeting a robotics company in the middle of Boulder that was helping kids become nerds through really cool little fun toys. But this is the exact kind of company that's being affected by the internet, and it's the exact kind of company that's building a really sustainable business model. And did I mention they're hiring? So many of the companies we've met with here are hiring right now, right? Like these are stories that we wanted to tell and we're hoping to share with the rest of the American public because there are not a lot of parts of this economy right now that, as I like to say, you know, have their swagger, all right? But these who are taking advantage of the internet are, and they're growing and they're building really awesome stuff.
Also, and you know, we didn't really think about this ahead of time, but these modular robotics are actually a very good metaphor for the internet. They're all sort of nodes. Some of the nodes have wheels on them and they go if they're connected to another node that tells them to go. Some of them flash lights, some of them have sensors, some of them are power, some of them you know, have some sort of simple programming in them. You know, if this then that type of programming. And you know, by itself, none of these really do anything. But when you start putting them together, you can make cars, you can make all kinds of things, and that's what's fun for the kids to play with, and that's what's fun about being on the internet too. There's no, you know, there's no instruction manual with these. You don't need it. The instruction manual wouldn't help you. There's no sort of top-down design. The same with the internet. It's all these nodes putting together, and interesting things, unexpected things start to happen. And it was really cool to see that in robot toy form.
Okay. This is, of course, the book by Brad Feld, Startup Communities, which has been making the rounds, and I think deservedly so. Brad obviously made a name for himself in Boulder, building a startup community there. We were hosted at the offices of Simple Energy, a company that's helping all of us do a better job, not just using less energy, but more to the point, saving money in the process. And actually making it kind of fun, making it kind of competitive, and using the same kind of spirit that makes us want to get a high score in a video game, also want to save our family money and, you know, reduce some of our energy dependence. This book got a feature in this because one of the things that I cannot shut up about, especially, I mean, it doesn't matter where I am, the Silicon Valley myth of that being the only place for this kind of tech innovation needs to go away. It really needs to go away. Y'all, I hope y'all are clapping for yourselves, because the reason it will go away is there'll be more startup communities that continue to flourish, continue to thrive, and I mean, we'll do our part to tell these stories on this little trip, but you know, we're going to continue on our way tomorrow. You guys are going to keep kicking ass and taking names here, and as these communities flourish, as Eric talked about earlier, it affects everyone. It's that innovation multiplier, and the more examples we can make that sort of dispel this myth of Silicon Valley innovation, as if it's some kind of exclusive thing that happens in this really boring part of Northern California. And I will grant them that. It's a boring part of Northern California. If you ever spent any time in Silicon Valley, it is a very boring place to live. Yeah, we know it. I know. I lived in San Francisco for 2 years, and that was a stretch. I mean, I enjoyed living there, but going down, oh, geez, no, dangerous. And I far too often I see too many people, especially young founders, think that that's the place they need to go to start their company, and that is absolutely, positively false. And so I'm happy we've got like practically a textbook now showing how it's been done and how more will continue to do it. Oh, that guy. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So that's the scroll you guys know well. During this discussion, we actually had a couple of staffers from Senator, I don't know his name because he's not my senator, Udall, and the other senator. Bennett, nice. Wow, okay, excellent, well played. Yes, so the two senators from the great state of Colorado had their staffers there. And one of the things that came up from this discussion was that people were saying, and we had 100 or so startup founders from Boulder, all saying that it was clear that people didn't quite politicians didn't quite grok what a startup was. They still thought of startups in the same way as they thought of any other business. And businesses, in the traditional sense, are still extremely valuable parts of any economy. But what startups were looking for were very different things than what businesses were looking for. Because a startup wants to go from two people and an idea to a company that literally 4 years later could be valued at $1 billion and have 100 employees. They're built for growth. Now, they're a lot riskier, but that's why startup founders get in the game. And this kept going, and then someone mentioned how there was this fact that we need to be involved at a much more local level, and that, whereas going to Washington is pretty cool, and being there, if you can get the appointment, can make a difference. Having some actual face time at the state level can make a huge difference, because state legislators don't get nearly as much action, and yet they have a tremendous amount of power at a local level. And then it kept bubbling, and different ideas kept going back and forth about how we could get more involved, because we know as founders we need to be connected to our politicians, whether we like it or not. If we want to avoid more SOPAs and PIPAs, and if we, lo and behold, actually want laws that could benefit us, we should play a role in this. And we've seen the power we have. That's what SOPA PIPA showed us. Why don't we use it? And thus Geek Day was born. This idea that apparently we're going to be held accountable for, where we basically flash mob DC, although we'll do a beta run where we do it at the state level. We're all across the country for a day. We have people all previously identified and sent out with some specific goals, some specific asks for us to make of our representatives that would benefit the open internet, and in particular, the startup communities in which we live. And we could go on a single day, this is a nice sort of shameless press attention-getting move, on the same day, kind of flash mob all of our state legislatures. Of course, we'll set an appointment, we'll make an appointment, it'll be very polite, people will, I'm sure, be well-dressed and well-spoken. But we try it out at the state level. We see what happens once we make that big of a deal, because, there's no sense in going the lobbyist route, because that just leads down the same kind of broken problems that we see so many people frustrated with when it comes to Washington. Let's just try this ourselves. And enough people said, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Enough people said, I would love to represent my district in Washington. If we can pick out a day, I'll get a plane ticket. We'll all go down to DC, do the same thing with our representatives and our senators. Again, we'll schedule a meeting. Nothing too ridiculous about this, except afterward we will play Settlers of Catan. And we'll take advantage of the fact that you have a startup geek from every district in the country all in Washington at the same time. But this was something that came about literally as we were sitting there on stage, because a bunch of people raised their hands and started talking. And we're finding so many metaphors here as we're up here for the internet. That's how this thing works, right? It doesn't matter if you've got the way these ideas snowball, whether it was specifically something like the GoDaddy boycott, which bubbled up from some random Redditor who we've never met, but who had a good idea. And then lots of other people said, that's a great idea, we should boycott GoDaddy because they're supporting these awful bills. And then a few days later, after all the experts said, that'll never work, it worked, right? The idea won because enough people liked it. And it was this vision of extracting the very best ideas from all of us and mobilizing behind the ones that work that doesn't have top-down organization. And it was also an opportunity to get lots of high fives, which was nice too.
Yeah, at our event in Lexington tomorrow, we're actually going to be sort of trying to flesh out this Geek Day idea some. So we hope very soon to have some more, at least concrete questions to ask as we start actually planning this thing. So we're going to do it. This is the bus in front of the Rakes School at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. The Rakes School is a really innovative program where they have students work on projects that are very similar to the type of projects you would work on at a startup or in a sort of innovative group at a large company. And it was just really exciting to meet all of the students and the people working there. Because none of them were fearing entering this scary job market we have now. They were all very confident, optimistic, but they also know, because the way this program was set up, they were also working very closely with companies out there, and they had a good feel for what types of projects, what types of employees companies would be looking for, or what types of resources were available to start their own company. So it was just really awesome to see so many students, energized when in the news we hear about, how it's so tough, and it is. I mean, not to diminish that, but to see a group that was just so pumped up and had, so much drive and so much energy to go out there and start companies or work at startups or really do something was really exciting.
That's Eric. I want to be clear here. That front row is empty, not because of something like Eric told them. Those are all reserve signs. But you had about 100 plus kids, all wide-eyed, as Eric told this story about a very special movie that, again, like so many of these other examples, came about because enough people kept snowballing on one really good idea. And it all happened from Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah, and in Nebraska, a lot of these Midwestern states, people say, "Oh, they're so nice and polite." Look, none of these kids are on their phone right now. And I'm sure some of them were bored, but they were all too polite to pick out their phones while I was talking. So that was really awesome.
Okay. After we had to take it down a notch because they got to see this badass action movie trailer, and then I told them all, as young people, as our future, they should have their politicians on speed dial because they work for you. And there was an app that Ben Ha turned me on to called Contact Congress. It's a free app. Actually, you can fire it up and see right there on speed dial your representative based on what district you're in right now, and the 2 senators based on the state you're in right now. And for no reason other than maybe the pure pressure of a couple hundred kids staring at me, I called one of their representatives, and I asked initially, I was like, was he for or against SOPA? Because I have no idea. It turned out he wasn't at first, he was at first. So I called. Unfortunately, it was 4:59 p.m. and he had already gone home, I guess, for the workday. So I had to leave a voicemail. But the sheer terror of doing it in front of a bunch of people was fortunately, I guess, mitigated because he didn't pick up. But the point that I wanted to emphasize too is that when you do this stuff publicly, not as ridiculously publicly as like in front of a bunch of people, but just sharing that, like, hey, on Facebook, I just called my senator, or on Reddit, I just called up my representative, it inspires other people. It doesn't take a lot, but it shows that, like, for a lot of first timers, many of whom were there active during SOPA PIPA, it's not so awful. Even if you're going to call up and say that they're making a terrible decision, they're still going to be pretty polite. And if you can sort of imagine yourself as, checking up on an employee, because again, that's what you're doing, you're the boss, it's a psychological hurdle that can totally be conquered, and we'll hopefully see more of it. And oh, yes. All right, go ahead.
So this was a company I was really excited to visit. This is a company, Huddle, Hudl. They're in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I had not been to a high school football game since I was in high school, like most people, I imagine. But it was exactly the same. The coaches had the same attire, you know what I'm talking about, the same haircuts, the same, that guy's got the Oakley blades there on the thing, the same group of kids and parents and boosters. I mean, it's exactly the same. It was great. Except that in this coach's box, one of the coaches had an iPhone. And on that iPhone, he has an app where he's marking down and distance. He's marking what formations they ran. He's marking whether it was a a good play and why. He's marking, this, player, 13 on this play needs to watch the tape or the video of this because he missed his assignment and it resulted in the other team getting a touchdown, whatever. And all that information from this app is then, once the coaches upload the video, it's matched up with that video. And so when the team, the coaches, the players wake up on Saturday morning or even late Friday night, they've got their highlights. They've got all their feedback from the game, and the video is cut up to match that. Now, that's pretty good right there. But then all of these players, all the plays, all the teams, all the games, all the stats, all the highlights are then indexed so that they have, they basically have every high school play in football and basketball and volleyball and, a lot of sports, high school sports, and even some professional ones, so that, coaches and players can go, if they're trying a new offense or they're working on a certain skill, with their team, they can go look at past footage, or they can go look at other teams' footage. They can scout their opponents, and maybe even more, sort of. What's most awesome is players who are from, especially a rural school, or who don't have a lot of money or aren't getting media exposure, can, they have a better shot at getting recruited by colleges because these video packages go directly into the recruiters' laptops, and their parents don't have to spend a lot of time and money putting together DVDs and sending it out and hoping someone opens it, puts it in the DVD player and watches it, gives them a shot. So it's sort of democratizing, athletics, democratizing recruiting. This company's in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's been profitable for a few years, which is why no one in California has heard of it. But I mean, this company it's saving money from the coaches. It's saving money from the school systems because this is all, it's subscription based, so they're paying for it, but much less than they would if they were paying for the equipment and expertise they were doing before. They told us they hear from a lot of coaches it saves marriages and families because the coaches can do this in less time, and it saves, it turns kids who may not have gotten a chance to get a scholarship. Now they have a fairer shot. Really awesome company, doing great stuff in there. They're in Lincoln. They actually, so we don't actually have Coors on the bus, but we have beer from Nebraska that we're transporting. So, and licorice that they gave us. Their motto is help coaches win. And so we toured their office and just, it was really, everyone there was just really excited to work there. The town's really excited to have them there. They're bringing in, even though Lincoln is really, really cold, they're bringing in people from outside to come there because it's such a great company and because they pay really well and it's a great environment to work in. This was their sort of meme take on the open internet. They were pretty excited by it. You can do this one.
I really wanted to know what I should eat when I was there. I needed to know. And I asked at the University of Nebraska, what do I need to eat that will make me feel like a Nebraskan? And it was runza. Why? What is runza, you ask? Let me tell you. Because I ordered 43 of them. The chain is also called Runza, but the thing is also Runza. The plural, I believe, is Runzas. It's this box full of Runzas. Each one of them is roughly yay big, maybe a little bit bigger than a Hot Pocket. And this is important that I plant that seed there because it is a lovely layer of dough, soft, warm dough, with a little bit of crispy on the edges, just a little. Inside, ground beef and cabbage. More ingredients, you ask? Oh no. Ground beef, cabbage, inside dough. Now, first one I had, I was sober, and I enjoyed it. Second one I had, I was a little tipsy. By the third one, I barely even remember the third one. It was only because I saw the wrapper after eating it that I was like, I'm so happy I just ate that right now. I feel so warm and full. And apparently that's the secret of Runza. But the only takeaway, this has nothing to do with anything else, mind you. I don't know how I can. This, incidentally, is not a metaphor for the open internet. Sorry, everything else was, but remember we said the internet. So software is eating the world. That quote's gotten a lot of play over the last week and change. Andreessen, give him credit where it's due. But we know this is affecting every single industry. You'd be hard-pressed to find an industry that's not being affected by the internet. Case in point, go visit runza.com, advertised on their wrappers. I connected it. Oh yeah. This has everything to do with internet freedom. It's a flabongo. Oh, you laugh. It's an example of modern engineering. We like solving problems in the startup community, right? You find a problem, you're confronted with a difficulty, you find a way to solve it. Someone was trying to make a beer bong, probably didn't have all the equipment he or she needed, and so they stole a flamingo, one of those lawn flamingos, cut off the legs, sawed off the beak, and thus the flabongo was born. These were not stolen, they were bought, but I'm just thinking at its inception, someone probably ganked them from some suburban lawn. The more you know. Ooh, the bus. And with photos. All the people who backed at a certain level have their photos inside of our bus, staring at us with those cold, dead eyes, 24/7. No, but it's actually really wonderful because some of them are friends, but most of them are total strangers. And they're all people who just said, yeah, here's some money. I just want my face staring at you on the bus. I want to be a part of something a little bigger. You don't need to give me anything per se. I want to feel like I'm contributing to something. And that is so awesome. And side note, Craig Newmark, founder of Craigslist, was one of those aforementioned donors who is saving all of us from hitting our heads when we walk under that. It's a little low. So it's nice to have Craig watching over.
So all of the, also if you were a supporter, you could also get a handwritten postcard sent to you from the road. This is a lovely postcard we picked up, I believe, in Iowa. It says, "Love those buns." It's got some nice
referring to the
cowboy
bottoms.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think, and I mostly put it up there because it's a funny postcard, but this and the photos on the bus and the fact that we're taking a bus around the country to promote the internet, I don't know. I mean, there's something that we see when we go to Reddit meetups. Like, there's something amazing about combining sort of, or about taking something online and virtual, or not in IRL, and then bringing it and doing something offline. So, promoting the internet by driving a bus around, it's a little absurd, but I don't know. There's something about it works. Supporting, letting our supporters of this campaign know that. We appreciate their support by me, with my horrible, god-awful handwriting, writing out a postcard from the road on a moving bus. It's basically illegible, but I don't know, there's something nice about it. There's something nice about printing out the photos and putting them up. So that's just a little sort of marketing tip, I guess, but there's something really nice about that. This was, so in Des Moines, we had one of our sort of more ambitious events. When we were putting this together, I called up the folks at Douala in Des Moines. Douala is basically trying to become the digital version of cash. So normally, and I didn't understand Douala when I first learned about it, but I'm starting to. Basically, in the U.S., for small businesses and merchants, the credit card companies take, anywhere from 3 to 10 or 15%, depending on the nature of the transaction and the service. Douala. Basically their belief is that it's your financial data, either the merchants or the customers, and it's all ones and zeros. You shouldn't really have to pay that much of a premium. You shouldn't have to pay 10 to 15% to share your financial data with someone else and have them share financial data with, we're basically transferring data around. And there should be a more equitable cost structure. So with Douala, I think every transaction costs 25 cents. That's above $10. Everything below $10 is free. So anyway, Douala is an amazing company in Des Moines, trying to literally change the way we handle money. They're trying to change the world. So I talked to them about doing something, and they decided that in Iowa there's big things. They do caucuses, so they wanted to do an uncaucus. So normally in a caucus, it's for the political parties. You come in to sort of argue and debate and arrive at planks for the party. But this, we decided, let's just let anyone come in. You can't really be, you have to kind of play. Is on a bridge, which is really, really cold because it's above a river and it's cold in Iowa. And the bridge is sort of another metaphor that everyone's meeting in the middle. So people came up to discuss any idea they had about what could make Iowa better, what could make Des Moines better, what could make the country better. And we had a whole range of everything from water conservation or clean water initiatives to this amazing farmer named Carl, who's my best friend now. He has this really special breed of pigs, and he's developed this hydroponic system to grow alfalfa to feed these pigs, and he can do it with a lot less land and a lot more efficiently. And that allows, hopefully, if his sort of technology catches on, it'll allow people to raise pigs much closer to cities and population centers, so they won't have to pay to transport them and all that good stuff. And he's going to be doing an Indiegogo campaign. And then Carl's don't let the one-strap overall fool you. He's a very smart, educated man who's done a lot of different things. He invented the Mac Aquarium, which is an old Macintosh that's been turned into a fish aquarium. Really sharp guy. And then he said, for farmers like him that aren't part of the big, the big ag businesses, things like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, or at least, or communities, kind of finding out about him and what he's doing and rewarding him online. If that's not happening, they have no chance. So this guy Carl, and a lot of people like him, and we visited another farm this morning in Missouri. They see, even if they're not online much, they see the internet as sort of their last best hope. We decided to create the Last Supper photo at dinner. So that was fun. So another thing we did for our supporters, this is Ben Ha in the white glasses from Cheeseburger, and another two people who are on the bus with us. So if you pledged $400, we would drunk dial you. And so we have one supporter left to call. So maybe we aren't quite drunk yet, but if you guys would help me to drunk dial them, I think that'd be really fun. No, that's not fun. What song we should sing?
So we need to sing a song for this drunk dial to make up for some of our sobriety. Is there a particular song for like St. Louis? Is there like a St. Louis jam?
St. Louis.
Sorry?
It's getting hot in here.
Right. All right, I forgot my Band-Aids. He's the dude who wore the Band-Aid, right? I'm with it. Yes, okay. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes.
Okay, we need help, obviously.
Really? Is that what we're gonna... All right, let's put it on speakerphone. They drunk dialed me and I didn't even pledge. It was pretty entertaining. The conversation started with Ben Ha saying, "Hey dude, it's Ben from Cheeseburger. Listen man, Eric, he made some bad decisions and he's talking to the cop right now, but I don't think he's gonna get out of it." And I thought it was serious because I know Eric.
Hello? Hey, we have a song to sing you.
Marta?
Oh no!
Today is your lucky day. Wait, you want to come over here?
Hey, can you bring it up?
Thank you.
Marta, we're in the beautiful city of St. Louis.
And we got a dope jam just for you. We got 100 people here ready to get you hot. This is going better than I expected.
Just wait for the chorus. How many votes do we need to do?
No teasing. I need you to get up on the dance floor. Get that man what he asking for. 'Cause I feel like busting loose and I feel like touching you. Can't nobody stop the juice. So baby, tell me what's the use? I said it's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes. It's getting hot in here, so take off all your clothes.
Marta, I hope you enjoyed that drunk dial.
We love you, Marta.
Love you, Marta.
Thanks for supporting internet freedom.
Bye-bye.
Wow, give yourselves a round of a hand. So we've been pretty big champions of bringing some gender balance to tech, and if on top of all the other good reasons for it, it's to make sure we have enough people to do the female part of that song. So as if we needed one more reason to bring gender equality to tech, there it is. Oh yeah, that was in a claw machine at a trucker rest stop. Domo cone.
Everywhere.
Right? Everywhere. The internet is there. We also, on that same rest stop, talked to a trucker who asked about that red and blue bus that said Internet 2012 on the side, to which we replied, we're campaigning for internet freedom to let our politicians know don't mess with the internet. And this trucker, man, his eyes lit up. He was like, dude, I just want to leave my truck and join you guys. We would have loved, I mean, if we could have really done that Smokey Bandit thing, if we'd actually had a semi with us. Semi, bus, and muscle car. All right, next one, next trip.
So this is an interview we did at WUIC, I think. I think that's right. Anyway, the University of Iowa in Iowa City. It's a college radio station here. And we talked a lot about copyright law here. And how, that's obviously what triggered, SOPA and PIPA to be introduced. The sort of driving force behind those is the Hollywood and the MPAA and the copyright industry. And we really, they had a professor there who's an expert on this, and we really talked a lot about, historically in this country, why copyright, why patents were, introduced the way they were. And how, and my numbers may be wrong, so I'm sure someone can correct me if it's not accurate, but at the beginning, in the time of our founding fathers, the period of copyright was 7 years, 12 years, something like that, and now it's, depending what it is, it's the life of the author plus 75 or plus 90, depending on what category. But it's way, 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 way longer than it should have been. So when Alexis writes his book, or when his book comes out next year, called Without Your Permission, that book won't be available for people to remix and share freely and all that good stuff until 75 years after he's dead. So that's sad.
If we get singularity, that'll be never.
Right.
It'll be, if I can help it, it'll be under a Creative Commons license.
But I mean, the point was that our founding fathers, designed copyright to encourage innovation, and they did it because in America at that time it had no American culture, right? It had all these cultures from all we were a melting pot, all these different cultures coming in from different parts of Europe, from people moving here to start something new, and they set up the copyright system the way they did, and the patent system the way they did to encourage that, not to stifle it, not to prevent it. And now it's the complete bizarro mirror opposite, where copyright law and the way they're enforced and the way people who own copyrights just try to grab as much land as possible, and their lawyers are rewarded for being as aggressive as possible. We've completely turned around what the founding fathers intended into this just bizarre, broken system that's really hurting innovation. That's really hurting, it's hurting our culture because there's so much we can't reference, can't talk about, can't play with, because it's controlled by someone else. It's owned by someone else, even though it's ours. It's our culture. So that was a really fascinating talk, and I think a very important issue.
And specifically, imagine the founding fathers rising from the dead. Well, okay, that's like a horror movie plot. Like, assume we've figured out why they've risen from the dead. And they go to, they're having dinner at an Applebee's, right? And it's TJ's birthday. And everyone wants to sing him happy birthday. They want to bring the waitresses over and the waiters over. They can't actually use the lyrics to happy birthday because somehow those lyrics are still under copyright. And you don't want to piss off Thomas Jefferson on his birthday. You just don't.
Yeah, but I mean that's another thing. You can go anywhere in this country and talk to anybody you meet in a gas station, in a pharmacy, whatever, and ask them, do you think the lyrics to Happy Birthday should still be protected under copyright? And I challenge you to find someone who says yes, they should.
Ooh, this is a good quest.
I mean, unless they're an entertainment lawyer, you're not going to find someone. This is a great event we went to in Iowa. This is in Iowa City, the university there. This is a startup weekend, so I know that there have been ones in Kansas City, I believe, and in St. Louis, and there's one coming up maybe.
Yep,
November 9th through 11th in St. Louis. It'll be here. It'll be here. So this is a really awesome event. It's people coming together, and they basically have a weekend to kind of come up with a business and sort of go through all the important steps of starting it in the course of like 53 sleep deprived hours. So it's a really awesome experience, and in a way, if you are thinking about doing your own startup, definitely do it. If you are curious about working for a startup, definitely do it. If you just want to have a fun experience over a weekend that'll help you be better at your normal job, you should definitely do it. And if you're going to make some new friends, you should definitely do it. There's really no good reason not to do it. It's a lot of fun, and we saw, the one we were at, it doesn't even have to be technology. There was a group that had a really compelling story where they wanted to create two of the people in the group were immigrants, and they told this hilarious story about they didn't know you're supposed to get out of the car when the cops are behind you with the lights flashing. So they were going to a birthday party of another friend who had just come to this country, and they just drove with the cops behind them for a long time in the middle of Iowa. These are 3 or 4 guys from the Ivory Coast, Cameroon. And by the time they got to the party, there was like 7 or 8 police cars behind them, and they just didn't know. No one told them that. So anyway, this startup was trying to fix a very real problem of, and their solution was a book that would be widely distributed through embassies and programs and colleges, to teach you all those things that no one tells you about starting a new life in America if you're from another country. So you don't have to be, you don't have to be a programmer or designer, or even it doesn't even have to be online. It can be anything. So it's a really cool program, and it was great to see. And I encourage you all to go November 9th through the 11th, right here, Startup Weekend.
That's your excellent. Oh. So I was when Eric told me there was a chance we could have a farm breakfast this morning, I said, please, 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 please. When he told me what time we would have to wake up, I said, I don't care, please, 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 please. This morning, and I want to rub it in, but we had some of the most delicious sausage quiche, and some kind of thing directly from heaven itself. I can only describe it as a cinnamon bun and a cheesecake having a baby. Like it's their offspring, and it was beautiful. Making love. This was all produced on a local farm. I learned, thanks to Ag Local, that 98% of all the farms in this country are family owned. Problem is, they're not operating on a level playing field with the megacorps that do farming in ways that ultimately don't really make the best meat for us. Good news is, that was all until now, until some plucky founders in Kansas City, Nathan, pictured there in the middle, decided to start a company to solve that very problem, because he kept going back to his guy at the farmer's market where he'd get meat from. And one day he wasn't there. And he asked him the next week, dude, where were you? And he was just like, I couldn't make it, I had much stuff going on. And on top of everything else he was doing to manage his family farm, making these trips, making this commitment, this really inefficient way to connect with the marketplace, literally a market, it was becoming unsustainable. And it wasn't just for him, it was for so many others. And so they've basically said, all right, internet, really good at making markets efficient. Let's build a software for farmers. Farmers who might only check their email a couple of times a week, who are still relying on this thing to make their farms, make their businesses more efficient, because it now connects them with the people who actually buy their meat. And so the people who buy the meat, whether it's restaurateurs or just hungry individuals, are getting higher quality meat that they feel a real connection to, and are directly impacting the farmers who are running 98% of the farms in this country. And it's stories like these that are just so wonderful, because it's really easy to think that all this is about is sharing cat photos. And I know, Reddit, I'm proud of how many cat photos Reddit shares. And Reddit certainly does other things more substantive than cat photos. But this technology, the open internet, is capable of affecting every single freaking industry. Even industries with people who aren't carrying smartphones they check every 20 seconds, like all of us. But people who just are making a living in a trade that is as old as this country is, but is now being affected finally by this technology that makes their lives more efficient, more effective, and just be better farmers.
Yeah, so here's another example, right? I don't know how far away, but in this city down the street. This is a jewelry and clothing shop called Scarlett and Garnet. We went there, it's amazing. I bought something really nice for my girlfriend. But the founders of this business, they were working all kinds of other jobs. And then they started to get into sort of the renegade craft movement. They started making things. Started getting really good at making things, jewelry in this case, and different sort of cut metal jewelry. And then they started to be able to sell it on Etsy. They would also go to some of these craft shows and sell it there. But they really started to get a volume and customers, and also figure out their business. Figure out what do we make that people also want. What is that, to refine their craft, their skill, to refine their marketing ability, to refine, how do we price these things? Figure all that stuff out. And that allowed them to now open a retail store right here downtown. They still have the online business that supports, that helps support this store. They wouldn't be able to do it just on the volume they're doing in the store alone. It also gives their online customers who are nearby the chance to come in and meet them in person and see it. But I mean, this is what we did this tour for. All these people who are making things, making cars, making food, making jewelry. The internet is their last best hope. Otherwise, we're not going to have anyone who makes anything in this country. And I think most of us as consumers want to support people who are making things in our city or nearby, or that we believe in, that we know their story, and we want to reward them. But we just don't yet have those marketplaces and those communication platforms. And that's what the open internet provides. And it's it's got to be this open system where no node is sort of above another, where no node is in a hierarchy above another. It's got to be this open, kind of flowing system. Because if we have that, then it's a level platform, and anyone can come in and start something. They can start selling their stuff on Etsy. They can start a competitor to Etsy if they don't like it. That's what we need. So it was really awesome to go downtown here and see, this happening in a shop that's making, art and jewelry and clothes. Anybody know where this is?
STL style.
STL Style. These are the Vines brothers. Again, and their lovely cat, whose name I can't remember. Yeah. Again, these guys are promoting St. Louis. These guys are, again, started online, selling witty St. Louis T-shirts and designs. Eventually they were able to build that up and allowed them to open a store. It also allowed them to sell these shirts to St. Louisans. Yes, right. St. Louisans all over the world. They had a map, and people selling St. Louis T-shirts, some of which were very funny that I don't feel comfortable repeating here, all over the world. And they're now running not just a thriving business, but a thriving business in a part of town that they're sort of reinvigorating and putting their passion into, and it's really awesome to see how, again, the internet and the online community, in this case of St. Louisans all over the world, can help support improving one block, one street, one neighborhood in St. Louis on Cherokee Street. And that's what these platforms do. So another thing we've kind of need to figure out collectively is how do we measure that economic impact? How do we measure? It's easy to measure, okay, whatever the company is, Google, Dropbox, Facebook, they have so many employees, and the company's worth so much money, and that's easy. But with these startups and with these online platforms, they're also allowing all these other businesses to start up because of the efficiencies, because of the marketplaces, because of the cheap, open tools they provide. How do we measure that? And how do we show that to, our elected officials? How do we show that, to the city and town governments? How do we show that to business organizations so that they really realize what these people are doing when they're creating these new and powerful tools? Because right now we don't have a very good way to quantify that. We have a lot of awesome stories and not nearly enough, but we also need a way to really quantify it and say, okay, this company Huddle that's starting, they've saved, 25,000 coach hours, and they've saved school systems, $200 million, and they've saved, 97 coach marriages in the last quarter, or whatever the case is. So, that's a big problem that we hope that we all need to solve. So, yeah. But we have 2 more stops on our tour. We're in Lexington tomorrow, and then Danville, Kentucky, to watch the vice presidential candidates debate each other and also play a drinking game, probably. But yeah, so thank you for having us, and we'll take some questions.
I heard a rumor on the internet that the bus is the old Straight Talk Express. Is that true?
Yes.
For all of us in the back who couldn't hear the question.
Oh, right. So there's a rumor going around on the internet that the bus we were driving around used to be McCain's Straight Talk Express, and that is true. You can confirm it.
What does it smell like inside now?
Leather-bound books and mahogany. That was mostly Eric pimped it out. Oh, right, and Subway. Lots of Subway sandwiches. Oh goodness, so much Subway. We should have gotten them to sponsor this in hindsight. And that's the only question tonight.
I have 2 questions, if I may.
Of course.
The first one, you talked about copyright law. What's the middle ground for copyright, in your opinions? For example, if I'm a writer, I write books. Without copyright law, anyone would be able to take my content, rewrite it subtly, and sell it, which a lot of people could say, okay, that's fine, and other people could say, hey, that's not okay. What's the middle ground for you guys? Or is there a middle ground for you guys?
Yeah, I certainly don't want to paint it as this kind of extremist, like I got a book coming out next year. No, I don't want to paint it as this extremist, like no copyrights. I would love to see it sent back to the way it was written up and drafted by the founders. It's when it gets abused, like in the specific case of Happy Birthday lyrics, that there's a problem. And with regard to patents, I would love to see software patents die in a fire. And one of our friends, yay! It's a tough thing. It's a tough thing to talk to non-technical people about, because once you start going down, like, let me explain software patents, and then it's tough. I'm so glad so many people respond that way, because it's such an important issue, because it stifles so much innovation, and it's such a clean, like, there aren't many people still arguing for them who aren't trolls. And the couple of opportunities I've had with politicians to explain them, if this proves helpful, please use it. They sort of see the kind of flaws in business method patents. Enough of them kind of see how, okay, this is kind of interesting. Why does this really need to be patented? And if you can break down just how inane software patents are, given the extreme prior art in so many instances, and how the only people actually using them, and this is pretty well documented. I mean, there have been the effect of trolls on young companies is very well documented. They make no secret of it. That it's pretty clear that the only people really taking advantage of them are either hoarding them and not using them, stifling innovation, or they're basically extorting small companies. So I think the tide is turning on that one. But software patents is pretty cut and dry. I want to see those die in a fire. Drew Curtis of FARC has done an amazing job. He gave a TED talk about the time he actually defeated a patent troll that I recommend you all watch. And he's got some other things cooking on the stove. So hopefully that one gets solved. Copyright reform is going to take a lot more work, but yeah, set it back to what the founders had in mind.
Yeah, and I mean, before I worked at Reddit, I worked for a small independent film and music distributor, and there was just once a week we would get a trailer of ours taken down off of YouTube that we own the rights to, because some German TV station bought the German rights and screwed up the whatever and sent to DMCA and it got taken. I mean, it's just the system we have now is just so broken. And I think we've seen some areas where if you give people an easy way to buy something, and again, an easy way to know and understand and appreciate what they're buying, and a good way to kind of show it off, that they'll pay for it. So yes, I believe that, I don't know exactly what the middle ground is. I mean, I do believe in copyright. I just don't believe in enforcing it at the expense of innovation, at the expense of the American economy, at the expense of artists who want to be able to make things outside that system. So yeah, I don't know exactly what the middle ground is, but I think innovation is the way we get there.
So thinking about kind of the what currently exists on the internet and all the regulations around it, there actually is a completely open and completely free internet where you can do anything, but you need a Tor browser to access it, and there's a lot of questionable stuff on there. So what that's kind of one extreme, and the other extreme is maybe so limited. But what's the balance that you guys think that there's probably some stuff that you shouldn't be able to offer assassination services on the internet, and also that you should have other more freedom in other regards. So where is the balancing act there, and where is the right role for people to come in and regulate some things?
Well, I don't think you should be able to offer assassination services anywhere. I don't think that's really an internet issue. That's an anti-assassination issue.
Well, let's hear what the for assassination people have to say.
Sounds stifling my innovation.
No, but I mean, the internet's it's a platform. It's a communication tool, and we shouldn't penalize the platform and the this amazing communication tool we have because some people use it to do assassinations. So
maybe not the best example, but I think
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I don't know, and I think that's an honest answer because the system we have is it's not clear exactly how we got this sort of balance where there's not. There's some government involved, there's some big corporations involved, and everyone's kind of just not keeping their hands off it, which they should, and it's very fragile. So, I don't know. I do think that anonymous access to the internet with things like Tor. I mean, we built the U.S. government helped put money behind Tor so that people in dictatorships could get access to information. So, again, I don't think Tor is a bad tool. I think it's an amazing tool. If people are using it to hide their activities, if they're illegal, like assassinations, then those people should be penalized. Tor shouldn't be penalized. So I mean, I think we shouldn't limit people's access to tools because they have because they can be used for ill. Tor was designed for a very legitimate and supported for a very legitimate, amazing, powerful reason, and that was to help people in dictatorships get access to news and communicate with the outside world. So it's a very powerful tool, and I think we should support it.
I was wondering what's next for the internet movement, and will either of you run for office?
I guess, what is next for the internet movement? Well, we're all going to visit the Internet 2012 Tour Bus website and join the campaign. Follow us on Twitter. I would really like to see this Geek Day come to fruition. We're going to plan it out with a bunch of fun folks in Kentucky tomorrow, probably over bourbon. We'll see where that goes. I think it'll be really interesting because it will actually... Well, we'll have to figure out just what we're going to go in there with in terms of what are our asks. That was something that came up from the audience in Boulder. It was a very good point. Actually, no, from the stage. A dude who'd been operating with the FCC in Washington for decades was just like, if you're going to show up with some clear asks. So we'll have to come up with some asks. I've got a good feeling we're going to crowdsource those, figure out the day, move forward. We've already registered a few tentative domain names, so that's probably the next step. And I don't know, Eric's GM of Reddit. I'm just on the board these days. So Eric has full-time responsibilities to Reddit. So if he ever left those, he'd be letting down 42 million Redditors all over the world. I am also not going to be running for office anytime soon.
How do you see Reddit growing and innovating in the intermediate term?
Oh, sure. So that's easy. There's a few, and I mean, Reddit's always innovated. It's always evolved. I mean, it started as a link aggregator, then we added, I forget exactly when, the ability to make a self-post, self-text. Now that's a third of the content on Reddit. A third of the content on Reddit doesn't actually link out anywhere. It goes to text, a recipe, a rant, a question, whatever. Then, with sort of the rise of Imgur and all this stuff, now people are making content just for Reddit. Rage comics, memes, whatever you think of those, it sort of evolved what the platform is. Now I think the next wave is people, is two things. One is local subreddits, which I know you guys have a very good one here. Some very nice header graphics. Shout out for our St. Louis. And a year or two ago, there were a few in the bigger cities, but now like the big cities have not just their subreddit, but they have subreddits for all the different neighborhoods. They have subreddits for jobs or the music scene or people who are interested in startups in that city. That's huge, and that's all over the world. So that's one area of evolution that we're right in the middle of right now on Reddit. The other one is people building things on top of Reddit. So we've got Reddit TV, which is one that we created and own, which is amazing. Reddit TV pulls in all the YouTube and Vimeo and whatever videos from Reddit and puts them in this very, simple little player where you can sit back and just watch videos for hours and hours and hours. There's Radio Reddit, which is a 24/7 streaming music station that has music just from Redditors. There's University of Reddit, which is an online class, system that we had nothing to do with. It was just built by people on Reddit who wanted this. They didn't think there was anything out there like this that was open to anyone to teach a class on 17th century Italian fencing, or cooking for the Bachelor, or StarCraft strategy, or 18th century Russian literature. So they created one, and now the University of South Florida is actually teaching classes on there. The University of Georgia is making their TAs teach classes on there before they teach classes for real students. And that's amazing. That's happened without our sort of we supported it, but we it's not. That's something that's completely community led. So I think we'll see more and more things like that coming off of Reddit. Where if we improve the API, if we improve a couple knobs and options there for subreddits, every time we do that, this sort of new type of subreddit takes off. So I think, as long as we're not running out of those, and I don't see that anytime soon, we're going to keep seeing new ways for people to use this very simple, minimal hosting and commenting platform.
Real quick, and for just some bigger picture perspective, in 2005, Steve Huffman and I started Reddit from a little apartment in Medford, Massachusetts. We thought, let's just make something that always has new and interesting content. It was just links, there were no subreddits, no comments, just people submitting stuff with headlines and voting. 7 years later, from the same place where Steve and I went to college, Charlottesville, Virginia, the President of the United States did an Ask Me Anything interview for about 30 minutes with the Reddit community. That was a mind fuck. All right, 7 years ago, I was trying to convince Steve to start a company with me, and in the roughly the same place, here was POTUS doing an AMA. None of that we saw coming. Not even just, the president doing an interview. The fact that he was doing it on this subreddit, which was created by some random unpaid Redditor who just had the idea. It was a derivative of another subreddit that someone else had created. All of the awesomeness from Reddit, this was the only thing that Steve and I will take credit for, is knowing that the awesomeness of Reddit was going to come from the user base. And as long as we built a technology that supported them and did right by the community, like in a people-to-people kind of way, it was going to hopefully be okay. That's all we got right. The rest of it was everyone else. And so I don't have a fucking clue what I'm going to think 7 years from now, but I am with wide wonder just looking forward every day when I hit that front page to see what's going to bubble up next. And what's going to ultimately come out of it is going to be because of you all, assuming you're Redditors. And if you're not, for shame. But yeah, it's incredible.
Okay, last couple of questions here.
Over there.
Do you guys ever unban people?
Sure. Depends what they did. But yeah, no, we do. Okay.
So Benjamin Franklin said, only a virtuous people only virtuous people can have freedoms, basically. So, I guess my question is why do you think people come up with things like PIPA and SOPA and support them? And is it really just the corporations, or is there an issue in our culture? Or it seems to be I mean, it's not uniquely to unique to America, but it seems to be a very distinctly American thing to have these, laws, at least in as far as countries that we would otherwise think of as, liberal democracies. So I guess the question is why? Why do you think that, people other than corporations and politicians that might be sympathetic to them support these kind of things?
I mean, I don't think it's uniquely American. I mean, people, all over make laws to try to protect certain industries and certain things that they value. And no one's debating, or I'm not debating that, the Hollywood and the MPAA and these people that we, argue against have a lot of value and that they're making great stuff. And I think throughout history and throughout, there's certain foods and beverages which we all love, which you cannot make except in very tiny regions of Mexico or France. And most of us probably think that's okay because it doesn't seem to be harming other industries to not be able to make tequila except in one region of Mexico, or certain cheeses in one region of France. That's a similar sort of protectionist law. I just have a problem with it when it hurts entire dynamic sectors of the economy and entire industries and innovation. So I don't know. I think it's I mean, I understand if they're. I wish they would turn to innovation instead of these sort of legislative approaches, but I definitely understand the desire to protect an industry and a company from decline. I don't think that laws are ever the answer long term, maybe in the short term, but there were plenty of laws that the horse and buggy industry tried to pass once these horseless carriages came along, and plenty of other examples. You're seeing it happen now with things like Uber and Airbnb. People are trying to legislate those in cities to prevent those from happening because scary things might happen if we let more efficient systems find people places to stay and get people around town. So it's I don't know. I don't think it's uniquely American, and I understand where it's coming from. I don't think at the end of the day it's effective.
Real quick, so as a kid in high school, my father has been a travel agent all of his life. And when I was in high school, it was during the dot-com boom. And he would come home from work. He had just started his own travel agency, small agency in Western Maryland, him and another employee. And all of a sudden, OTAs, online travel agencies, were changing that industry. Travel agents were basically screwed overnight. Airlines cut their commissions to zero, which was the primary way of making money. And more people turned to the internet to book their own travel. Now, I know it's a little ironic that I helped start a travel search company called Hitmonk. You can table that for later. But I remember my dad coming home after he faxed Delta, and this is serious. Delta was the first airline to cut their rates to zero for travel agents. And he faxed them a fax that just said 2 words on it, "fuck you." And he faxed it to him. I guess he was pissed, obviously he was a little livid. And all the airlines followed, and his industry changed forever. It was technology that disrupted it. And I remember sitting at the table hearing him talk about this, and I remember thinking, damn, that internet, I was just using it for Quake 2 and like my Quake 2 clan. But it seemed like a really powerful thing, and I wanted to make sure I was going to try to be on the right side of that power as someone who really understood and really got it. But here's what I love. My dad did not call his lawyer. He certainly did not call his lobbyist. He adapted his business. And what I'm so proud of is the fact that his small business, his small travel agency, is still there in Tawnytown. He's adapted the business. And when I think about, being a business person, it seems like adapting to changes in consumer behavior is the way to go, not calling your lobbyist or calling your lawyer. And so I guess it gets me personally because you can look at the history of the entertainment industry. There's a great Wikipedia page on this. Jack Valenti, frontman for the film industry, once compared the VCR to the Boston Strangler. I can't make this shit up. All right? Like the hyperbole, the insanity, they have tried to stifle every single technological innovation that came along, most of which now make up a majority of their revenue, most of which are now the ways that they make money. And if they hadn't been pulling their hair out trying to call up K Street, and actually been adapting their businesses in a lot of cases, I think they'd be much better off. And so I guess I wish they took a page from my dad and all the rest of business people in this country and decided to innovate and not legislate. So that's why it gets me personally. So.
Good way to end it there.
All right, we'll be here. We'll stick around. Thank you, guys.